it up to a lightning round from the audience. So if you have a question, you may direct it at this time to a specific candidate, and they will have 30 seconds to answer. Lady behind Carol is, sorry, Carol. And then Carol.
Yes, I just hope that all of you will be part of the Democratic Party, whether you win or not, because you all have good ideas, and thank you.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Carol, I saw your hand next.
So this is a cultural, when you're talking about changing the culture of the Democratic Party. For example, assembly people can appoint. Assembly people, like in our district, assemblymen can appoint 6 delegates to the convention, which then get to vote for you guys. In our district and in other districts, I understand that the assembly person says, I'm going to make you a delegate, but you have to vote the way I suggest that you do, which I think is colonialism. You know, I think it is saying to the people I'm delegating to that I know more than you. And to me, it's not democracy. I want your thoughts on this, and what changes need to be made?
So is that directed at any one candidate, or do you want a yes/no question? Would you change this?
Well, I would direct it to, no, let's direct it to all of them quickly.
Okay, so just straight up the line, is that something you would change going forward?
I think it's important that everybody that represents the Democratic Party have the opportunity to express their vote in the way that they feel. I also think that we need to be careful about how we change the representation of the delegates of the Democratic Party. There was a compromise that was reached years ago to make sure that every faction of the Democratic Party felt represented and bought into the Democratic Party. We need to be careful to make sure that we don't lose that compromise. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly?
I mean, I think it's inherent with power, right? Power does not concede power. And, you know, one of the things we talked about last time was moving away from a system that does collapse and consolidate power into the hands of a few, and instead sharing that power to empower others. I do believe, similar to the recent policy from the D-TRIP, that I believe really stifles and suffocates the spirit of competition and the free marketplace of ideas, that we really need to move to a system, especially if this is the Democratic Party that believes in democracy, we need to move to a system that really encourages that spirit.
I agree with your concerns, which is why I propose eliminating those. I think we need to make the Democratic Party more small d Democratic and less concentrated in power. So that's why I put forward that idea.
Thank you.
For those that received my newsletter yesterday, actually it was speaking on this very topic. Our campaign proposes an anti-retaliation policy so that an appointed delegate can vote their conscience without being retaliated against by the person who appointed them. The thing is that when you're looking up here, 3 of us are appointed. Kimberly Ellis, Mike Katz, and myself. So you can't always say, well, if you're appointed, somehow you're not grassroots, and we don't want to cut off grassroots people.
Thank you very much.
So I actually think the most important word in the question, or in the lead-up, was culture. That this is an example of the kind of thing that needs a culture change. Because I've been thinking about this kind of stuff. I'm a gigantic nerd. I wrote a PhD dissertation about this party and how social movements have changed its structure. I can't for the life of me think of a bylaw that would fix the problem. But we need a cultural change so that elected officials aren't basically ignoring the grassroots for years and then just kind of swoop in to like strong arm ADEMs or just make this one thing happen.
Thank
so
you
it is
very
a
much.
culture problem.
Do we have one more question?
Thank you. I've had a chance to watch some of you 6 times, but 2 of you I haven't. So other than Lenore and Mike, I'd like to ask you when we're going to see a change from talking to actual action. All of you say the right words, but none of you include transgender women in your unions, in your California Democratic Party, or in your campaigns. And I've been raising that at every campaign stop. When I go to the temple, I get harassed just for being transgender. And some of you have made promises that you'll include us, but why should minorities actually think you're going to do it at this point? When do we see some action? Because I see silence today on defending Representative Omar when she's being attacked by the president.
So why don't we use this question as kind of a wrap up? So 30 seconds and see if you can.
30 seconds.
Can you do it? We're still on time. 1 minute?
Yes,
you guys want 1
please,
minute each?
please, yes.
Okay, 1 minute each.
Thank you.
Can you summarize the question?
So this was another question about inclusivity and walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So how will you actually implement real change? And specifically for transgender members of our community.
For transgender women. Very specific.
Transgender women, thank you.
This one is really complicated for me to answer, mostly because I think this is something that Rusty needs to address directly. I'm just his surrogate tonight. I do know that he is committed to change and to making sure everyone is included and feels included, and that their opinions matter, and that includes transgender women. But I'm going to defer this one to Rusty's campaign.
And do you want to do a quick wrap up too?
Yeah, so I'll just end with saying, you know, Rusty has a lot of experience running the largest labor council in the country. 800,000 union members are part of his labor council. There are lots of different and diversified views within that labor council, from the building trades to the public employee unions to professional unions like nurses. And he's managed that difficult task quite well, elected many, many Democrats, energized a lot of his membership to go out and knock on doors and make phone calls. And so he's a great leader.
Thank you very much.
So the philosophy of our campaign this time around is don't talk, show. So I appreciate that question. I would say with respect to what you can expect from my administration, to look at our regional campaign directors. We have 4 regional directors and several other staff. 100% of our campaign staff are LGBTQ. 100% of them. And so you have my pledge and my commitment right here today that trans women will be represented in my administration. I also want to point to an email that we sent out today and a post about paid internships. We are going to be paying interns and fellows to work on this program, our campaign, and for the party. And so I would encourage you to look at that as well. And then finally, I would say, just again, to end in what we really need in the chair at this moment in time, and that is the inspirer-in-chief. The person who is going to inspire people to do things that oftentimes they don't want to do. Inspire them to show up to work, inspire them to write checks, inspire them to not just register to vote, but to turn out to vote.
I think you're right to be skeptical of politicians and their promises. Far too often, politicians say one thing when they're running for office and do a completely different thing when they get into office. So I would say, don't trust me. Hold me accountable. Watch what I do. Talk to me, pressure me, speak to me. I think it's important as CDP chair that we spend time listening to people, and in particular the people who disagree with us, who have concerns that we're not adequately doing our job. So I would say, make sure that you hold whoever becomes CDP chair accountable to the promises they make during this campaign. I think that's incredibly important. I realize in this campaign for CDP chair, I'm a long shot, but I do think you should vote your conscience. I think there's likely to be a runoff election. Vote your conscience first. One of the things that if I was to be elected chair, I'd like to put forward going with an instant runoff election, so we don't have to have another election after the initial election. I look forward to your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I think my past 17 years experience speaks for itself. I'm not just a talker, I actually do, and I actually accomplish. 2011, they were told you can't file a temporary restraining order against Wall Street. No one's gonna win. That's how I stopped those 1,000 homes from foreclosure. I filed a temporary restraining order against Wall Street. Later on in 2011, they said, oh, you can't organize people. They're not going to understand the financial industry. Walked people on soapbox days from Oakland to San Francisco, all the way down to the financial district, and that became Occupy Oakland and Occupy San Francisco. And the world noticed. In 2016, in a red district running for Assembly District 72, although I was the endorsed Democrat, I was told, this seat never wins, you guys are in red, you're never gonna get money, it'll never be targeted. Figured out a way to get it true, I didn't get any money, but figured out a way to bump up that number so high that it became a targeted seat, with money just pouring in
Thank you.
2018.
So part of the way I make a living is as an adjunct professor of sociology, and I teach intro to gender and sexuality. And I had a student a few years ago, a trans woman, who was coming to class, very engaged, really a wonderful addition to the discussion. And at a certain point, she just stopped coming to class. And whatever, it's Santa Barbara City College, sometimes it's like the beach beckons, there's reasons people don't come to class. But I was worried, and a few weeks later, I got a message from her on Facebook that she'd been attacked in downtown Santa Barbara and beaten pretty badly, was recovering. And she was asking for an extension on work and so forth, which of course I gave her. That was a very humbling experience, and one that makes me very reticent to try to give any kind of pat answer to our sister's request, except to say that I'm still listening, I'm still watching, and I still try to have everyone's back as best I can, because that's how I was raised.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alrighty, guys, that concludes this portion. Let's please give them a round of applause.
Okay, before we start voting, I just want to say a few words of thanks. First, to the folks that set this up, the Women's Caucus, that put this whole setup together today. Well, let's give them a round of applause. If you're part of that Women's Caucus, stand up. Stand up. Come on, stand up if you're part of this setup. There's a lot of you. Stand up. Thank you. I also want to give special thanks to Jenny, and I hope I don't blow your last name here. Banadini? Brandadini Higgins, right? Higgins, Brandadini. Okay. And you're running, and she's running for the District 10, San Jose. So please stand, because she put together all the food stuff, and she made that happen today. So that was her donation. Thank you so much for putting that together. Let's give her a hand for that. Thanks. So the next step is if you are a Sunnyvale Club member.
We're going to do the voting while we're together.
Oh, we wanted to for the.
We're going to explain the voting while we're together.
Oh, we are. Okay, so then we'll do the amendment then first. Do you want to do the explain? Do you want to?
Could we explain now and then separate, and then you guys do the bylaws?
Do you want to explain the?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you come on? Okay. Yeah. Why don't you?
Okay.
Oh, there's two other people I need to thank for putting together the ballots, the whole setup and stuff. Leslie Logan, can you please stand? She's in the back. All the voting, the setup and everything, the badges, the whole work. Thank you. And also Linda Sell, who is coming up here to explain the rules of the voting. She put this together as well. Sunnyvale Park, please.
Hi, so my name is Linda Sell, and I'm going to explain the voting for the endorsement voting. So the Sunnyvale Democratic Club and the Silicon Valley Democratic Club will be endorsing the candidates. So you should have picked up your ballot already. If you hadn't, then for the Silicon Valley Club, you would go to the back table. Jeff is waving his hand. If you haven't got it yet, see Jeff. If you're with the Sunnyvale Democratic Club, they're in the lobby to give out ballots. So you should have, in your envelope, you should have 3 secret ballots. And so there should be ballot number 1, ballot number 2, and ballot number 3. Both clubs vote with similar process. So this is the Silicon Valley ballot. So let's go to the next slide. So this is, that was the Sunnyvale ballot. So let's look at the first ballot. So we're doing sort of like, on the first ballot, there's 5 candidates, or you can choose to no endorse or abstain. So you would vote for one of the candidates who you would like your club to endorse. And then we will count the ballots, and if one candidate gets 2/3 support, they get the endorsement and voting has stopped. But if nobody gets 2/3 support, no one candidate gets 2/3 support, then we will announce like the results. We will announce who got the top 2 votes of the candidates, and then we will go to round 2. This is round 2. So in round 2, the only 2 people that you'd be voting that will be competing are the top 2 vote getters from round 1. So it's like the top 2 vote getters, like the California primary. So from round 1, there will be 2 top vote getters, and you will vote for one of them, or you will vote for no endorse or abstain. And then from round 2, we will see if we have one candidate that gets 2/3 support. If no candidate gets 2/3 support from round 2, then we will announce the results, and we will go to round 3. Round 3 is to decide if we want to dual endorse the top 2 vote getters from round 1. And so you could vote for the dual endorsement, against the dual endorsement, no endorsement, or abstain. So the Silicon Valley Democratic Club will be voting at around 8:30. Not yet. You'll be having a bylaws hand vote first, and I think Art will discuss that. But when you do the secret voting, then Silicon Valley will be handing their votes over here. And the Sunnyvale Democratic Club will be meeting out in the lobby. So right now is probably the time that the Sunnyvale Democratic Club members can start moving out to the lobby. And before you leave, if you're also a member of the, if you're Silicon Valley Democratic Club, you stay in this room. If you're Sunnyvale Democratic Club, you go in the lobby. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, good. Take care. Bye.
Linda, thank you so much for explaining that. And if for whatever reason you're confused, you can ask her. But the main thing is the first round voting. So we have a very quick hand vote. You all should have received either a blue or green card. Is everybody, can I have your attention as Silicon Valley Democratic Club members? If you have a blue or green card, kind of wave it in the air if you could. Just wave your card. Okay, fantastic. We're going to do a hand vote. What we have is a motion. And the motion that was sent out through the newsletter and notified to all members of the club was to remove the 180-day wait period and 50-day wait period to join the SVDC Executive Board or Nominating Committee and to vote on endorsements respectively. Now what this is going to do to our bylaws, it's going to be an affirmative vote. We'll change Article 11, endorsements. It'll change 50 to 0. That means those who have a green card today would be able to vote for endorsements, okay? An affirmative vote will change Article 7, election of executive board, from 180 to 0. That means that means members who have been members for less than 180 days could also join the executive board. Let's say a member joins in September, they could actually join the executive board when we have elections in November. And an affirmative vote will also change Article 7, election of executive board, Section 3, and that'll change that also from 180 to 0, and that has to do with the nominating committee. So there's a nominating committee, and normally you have to wait 180 days before you can join that. So those are the sections of the bylaws that will change with an affirmative vote. Okay? So for bylaw amendments, both green and blue cards are able to vote. Okay? The green cards would only be if we do not pass 2/3, then the green cards would not be able to vote for endorsements. That's the point of that. Okay, and if you have a green card, and this vote passes, then you need to go back and get yourself a full voting card for the endorsement vote. And they should have it, even if they have a green? Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, how's up?
How people vote on this amendment?
If they're a member.
Only the Democratic panel can vote for this amendment. Right? Ask member.
So you can load your audience.
It is what the, your question is correct, and the question was, why can green card voters vote, okay, on an amendment to our bylaws, okay? It's just the way the bylaws have been written. That's what the bylaws said. I didn't write these bylaws, but that's what they say, so I just have to go by what the bylaws are. So with that, the motion has been made. We can't make any amendments to this motion, understand that, because we need to give a 5-day notice, and any amendment, there would not be a 5-day notice to all the members. So either this is an up or down, it's either yes or no. So those who are in favor, please just raise your hand, and I think we have a counter. Yeah, we have a counter here. John McLemore is going to count all those in favor. Please keep your card up. This is at bylaws. This is to remove the 180-day wait period and the 50-day wait period to join the executive board or nominating committee and to vote on endorsements respectively. We are reducing it to a 0 waiting period. That means you join as a member, you can vote, which is exactly the same way that it is when you register to vote on voting day on all elections. I'm sorry?
Are you good? I don't think the chair should be advocating. I disagree with that characterization of what. It's okay. It's just count. It's just count. Got it? 42.
You got 42? Yeah. Okay. So can everybody who has a card, do we know exactly how many cards we have?
Call the no, call the no, call the no.
Okay. All right. If you disagree, please put your card up. So we have a total of 55. And I'll do my calculator math here. So we're going to take 42 over 55.
That's 2/3.
That's 76%. That's 2/3. The motion passes. So all those, so everybody is able to now vote on the endorsements that have either joined today. If anybody is not a member that's in the room and would like to join today, it's only $30. You join as a member and you get to participate in a lot of forums like this, because there's going to be a lot more forums with different voting opportunities later in the year. Thank you. So I guess we go to voting. When after you fill out your ballot, come over to the my right-hand side, maybe some of yours are left-hand side, and drop your ballots off. What's that? Well, I did vote yes. I don't know whether they